Well, it is 11:30, so I say we go ahead and get the show on the road. We have a lot to cover today to inform folks a little more about this unique commission opportunity for local artists. Just so you're aware, this session is being recorded and we will post it on our website so you can refer back to it. If there are, talking points that you want to here again. And so, welcome. My name is Rebecca Kinslow. I am the executive director for the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. If you're not familiar with us, we were founded in 1988 by artists for artists to grow and develop Oklahoma's visual arts community. I'm joined here by my colleague Ariana. Ariana.
Hey, I'm the Administrative and Artist Relations Manager at OVAC. So if you have ever been in any of our exhibitions or applied to one of our grant programs, you've probably heard from me. But yeah, happy to learn more about the program too.
Ariana will also be your support person, certainly through the application process, but we're going to dive into that in a little bit. It is my distinct honor to introduce Sunny Searly of Allied Arts, who is our program partner, brought us on as a program partner for this program that's been going on 10 years now. Sunny, take it away.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to have this opportunity to work with OVAC, and it recently became really clear to us that we should be working on this project with OVAC. So, the Allied Arts is the United Arts Fund for Central Oklahoma. Our primary work is to raise money through a large scale community campaign, through some pretty big special events, and then grant that money back out to more than 40 arts and cultural nonprofits here in central Oklahoma, but who actually do work and touch lives all around our state. One of the ways that we raise money for the arts every year is to go into workplaces, to go talk to people in their businesses about allied arts, and they may have the opportunity to donate to us through like a payroll deduction straight from their paycheck at work, or if their workplace doesn't have that, we've got a mobile website that they can use to make a one-time or recurring donation to Allied Arts. Uh, but we visit more than 100 different workplaces annually, giving a presentation about the impact that the arts have on our community and why it's important to invest. In those workplaces, one of the ways to give that we offer is at a level that we call the step up artwork. Those of you who have been in our artistic community for a number of years and have had an awareness of allied arts probably know that, about the city card. It used to be called the city arts card. It's largely like a 2-for-1 discount to arts organizations, but then has other stuff on there like 10% off at TLC or free queso at Iguana. The Step Up Art Program came in as a way to try to get those folks that were just giving $50 or $60 to get the city card to step up to a more meaningful level. And today that level is $200 annually to make you eligible in your workplace to receive the Step Up artwork. This year is actually our 11th year of the program. We have had many different kinds of artwork, lots of different local artists here in central Oklahoma, things that are completely original. I think Rebecca may show you in a minute an example from somebody in our 10th year that took on the brave task of painting 1,100 original works for this program, but other works that were maybe prints that were hand embellished, but also we had a glass artist did, every single piece was custom handmade glass art. So there's been a number of different ways that this has happened over the years. What is important for our development team as they go out into more than 100 different workplaces a year to ask people to contribute at this level or higher is that it has to be something that gets people excited. There are people, I'm one of them, that has the full collection of every single one of these artworks from 11 years of doing it. And it's been our experience, People love Oklahoma stuff. People love stuff that they can display in their office. I think you can see behind Rebecca right now. She's got Lawrence's work from the year that she did it. I'm an anomaly here too. I have all mine at home. There's one room in our house that's dedicated to all of our step up art, but because we're going to talk to people at work, it's really common that people will have something that will respond to something that they can display there in their workspace. Rebecca told me a couple of questions had already come up about could the artist be from Tulsa or outside of central Oklahoma? I think they absolutely could be. But whoever, wherever they come from to this program has to have a story that we can tell. You know, part of how we've gotten in conversation with having OVAC manage this program for us this year is that Clarence Long, who just came out of the artist entrepreneurship program at OVAC, is our step up artist this year. And Clarence has such a cool story to tell, both as a really young artist working in a really unusual medium, macro photography, and he graduated from this OVAC program, who is an all-day, everyday partner to Allied Arts. So I think more than the region that an artist is living and working in, the thing that's most important is that they have a story and that the artwork have a story that our development team can go out and talk about in the workplace that folks can connect to. The other question that Rebecca sent me had to do with speaking opportunities for the artist that's selected. You know, some of that really depends on the artist and your comfort level and your interest, but I will say it's the same thing. You know, the people in the workplace, if they can get excited about the artist, it helps us raise more money at Allied Arts. A particular group that it's helpful to have an artist be willing to engage with are the employee giving coordinators, the people inside the businesses that run the campaigns inside of the workplace. After we come and talk, and then they're the ones still there trying to collect donations or do internal fundraisers or do all the things to get people to give to Allied Arts. And they love to meet and connect with the step up artist. For the past few years, we've done that kind of a reception to announce the step up artist to them. And this year we did all morning long training for the employee giving coordinators, and Clarence came and presented his work and talked about his story, and you could just see them connecting to him in a new way that lets me know that they're going to be great advocates for us in their workplace because they got to hear from him. And I don't know that this is a speaking opportunity necessarily, but we love to announce the next step up artist at the celebration for our annual campaign, which is probably a 300-person event, usually at an arts venue somewhere in central Oklahoma. And it's great, again, to have donors get an early preview of the work, but also the person, so that they can start helping us get the community excited about investing at the step up level. Rebecca, did that cover everything that?
Yes, thank you so much, Sunny. So one thing I really appreciate about this program, it's truly a mission moment of, a very tangible way for folks to see how important it is that Allied Arts is in our community, supporting and advancing the arts. And it certainly is a lifeline for organizations like OVAC. So again, we're just so excited to be a part of this, and at the same time tell the story of a local artist, of why this is important. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we're just going to spend a little time now going through highlights of the application, the process, the timeline, things like that. I know Sunny has a hard stop at 12, so if we're still going at 12, we will gracefully say goodbye, but then we can stay on for questions and answers, or something we can't answer. We'll get back to you after consulting with Allied Arts. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Hopefully by now you have logged on to our website, but I just wanted to let you know this is kind of where all of the information is about the Step Up Art program. I'm going to go into again the application and the timeline here in a little bit. But one thing I wanted to point out, if you haven't already noticed, is that we do have the full history of the Step Up Art program that you can view on our website to get an idea of, some of the art that has been part of this program in the past. So just wanted to point that out. Get the right screen here. So the selected artists will be commissioned to produce anywhere from 800 to 1,500 pieces. I know that that's a wide range, but that really kind of depends on the amount of employees that give through this workplace giving campaign. Sunny, I think you said typically it's no less than about 1,000, right?
The 800 number, probably the most recent time that happened was during 2020. So makes sense how that was a harder year. On the high end, Benjamin Harjo Jr. We commissioned his last work, Lightning and Thunder, it was a print that he hand signed um, before passing. And that one was in tremendous demand, and even exceeded the number that Ben had signed before he passed. So there can be circumstances that maybe take it to one end or the other, but usually it's 1,000, 1,100 range.
Thank you for that. Um, And when we say kind of original hand signed 2D or 3D works, I'll show you an example. This is Madeline Dillner's from 2025. She's the artist that Sonny mentioned that took on the task of hand painting every single piece. That is not a requirement. I know it's hard to tell. She did, paint her signature. And one thing I wanted to point out about a display ready is that she did wire the back. There are some creative ways you can do that, given your media that you work with, but we will work with the selected artists on what that means and what makes sense. Another thing I wanted to point out is the past couple of years, we've took the Allied Arts has taken tremendous care in thinking about kind of the packaging. So they've come in this nice little box with a little sticker talking about, the artist in the piece that they're getting. But what you'll work with OVAC and Allied Arts on, what that could mean. You don't necessarily have to worry about that now, but I wanted to point that out as kind of like what the finished piece would look like once it gets into the hands of your new collectors. Um, we will also work very closely with the artists on what that kind of like final artwork will look like. This really is a partnership with you as well, just to make sure we're kind of aligning with the program goals on, and that's one reason we, presented the history. You can see some kind of like iconic Oklahoma images in there. That's not required, but, given that Lauren Florence did a Buffalo a couple of years ago, we might want to change that up this year. And then, as Sunny mentioned, in addition to the final compensation, there are opportunities for significant visibility and promotional opportunities for the Step Up artists in 2027. A little bit about the timeline. The application is now open. You can access that on our website. We use Submittable for all of our application processes. It will close on January 25th, and we have created a little bit of time for us to work with Allied Arts to identify the final artist, and then around March, April, we'll go into the contracting phase with that selected artist, mainly so that we can work with that artist and their, unique needs on, what production looks like, what display ready looks like, and get ready to kick off 2027 campaign, which will be June, maybe July 2026, where that artist will be announced publicly. November really kicks off the distribution phase. There was the breakfast that Sunny mentioned that might be an opportunity with the workplace giving coordinators and kind of that first like stepping out as the step-up artist, talking about the work, and then the distribution. And the distribution will happen in phases. Again, I will work more kind of, one-on-one with the artist, but I just wanted, as you're thinking about applying for this opportunity, it's not like you would have to have 1,100 pieces ready in November. So I wanted to be clear about that. And then the 2027 campaign will officially kick off in 2027. I'm going to jump into the application itself for a little bit. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Ariana is going to help moderate that. We'll leave some time at the end. In addition to kind of, your typical contact information, we do ask for demographic information so we can report back to funders and stakeholders about, who we're serving, but that is entirely optional. And then we get into Part C, which is a narrative portion of this application. And what we're really trying to understand here is what's interesting to you about participating in this program, as we, talked about this mission moment, this opportunity to give folks in 100 workplaces the opportunity to see why the arts are important and have an opportunity to collect your work. The why this work is significant to advancing the arts in Oklahoma, again, like that's Allied Arts mission, that's OVAC's mission. That's really the purpose of why we do what we wanted to do. And how can that help tell the story of why contributing to this campaign is so important? We also really want to get an idea of, of that kind of speaking talent that you might have, like when you've spoken to an audience or, talked about your process, whether that is at a gallery talk, on a panel, those kinds of things. And then your experience in managing large scale orders. This is, very much about feasibility of being able to meet these deadlines with a large amount of work. That just helps us to know that, yes, we can get this done together. And the final narrative question is just really about your concept. You don't have to have it completely figured out by the time that you submit your application, but any kind of details you can offer us about the medium within which you work, what kind of materials you might use, the size, the dimensions, that kind of thing will just help us understand kind of, again, that program fit for Step Up 2027. Then we give you an opportunity to provide a few support materials like your CV and resume, demonstrating your experience, some milestones perhaps throughout your career, headshot, and then artwork images of your current work, so we can get an idea again of your creative inspiration and the kind of work that you do. Please do also include an image list so that we can understand each of the files. You can upload 3 to 5 images of your current work. And then this is completely optional, but again, if you even have a mock-up of the concept that you're currently working on, we give you the opportunity to add a couple of files about that. Again, not required, but helps us to just kind of see, what are you thinking about? Particularly as we go into thinking about, again, this partnership of us all working together to think about what the 2027 artwork will be. So those are kind of the main things about the application and the process. We'll talk a little bit now about maybe what are some tips for what a successful candidate will be. And Sunny, do you want to talk a little bit about that too, in terms of, and in the past, this was an invitational process, and kind of what was the thought behind the artists that you've selected and what we're looking for going forward with this application process?
Thank you, Rebecca. First, let me say a little about how we came to ask OVAC to partner with us on this project. It is a big logistical lift, and we had managed that in-house for more than a decade. It's a big lift and it's different every time, depending on the medium, depending on the artist, depending on the timing, depending on the packaging. And through the process with Clarence, who was brand new out of the entrepreneurship program, I found myself recommending that we call Rebecca for help throughout the process with Clarence. So we would get into an issue with trying to figure out the right printer for him to use. And I said, well, let's call Rebecca. Or logistics on delivery. Allied Arts didn't have space to store 1,000 at once. What should we do about it? Well, let's call and ask Rebecca's advice. So it really occurred to us that OVAC works with artists every day. And then it made a lot of sense for OVAC to help facilitate this really important thing that's gotten really big in scale for Allied Arts. You know, the decision-making process in the past, speaking very frankly with you all, have been completely internal, managed by the Allied Arts staff team, largely because we're the ones that have to go out and talk about it. So I think that's the balance of this relationship with OVAC, who are the experts in helping artists put their best face forward, and the development team at Allied Arts, who have the job of going out and getting people excited enough about this work to want to donate to Allied Arts to receive it. We've intentionally tried to have diversity in the medium. We've intentionally tried to have diversity in the look and feel. Clarence shoots a wide range of photography, but we selected one of his black and white pieces because we had color, color, color. And knowing that people have these collections, we thought it would be really interesting to have a black and white in there to cut all of the color. We've also been really intentional about having diversity in cultural backgrounds of the people who have been the step-up artist over 11 years. So I guess if I could say anything, it's got to be something that people who work in Oklahoma City mostly can get excited about. It needs to be interesting in a collection of the other work. It's not a definite, but Rebecca's right, Oklahoma themed things, or if there's an Oklahoma story to tell with something, has been really a popular choice, though Madeline's tree that she hand painted more than 1,000 of is in New Mexico. And the work was so interesting, and the fact that she hand painted 50 a week and 50 every weekend for a year was such a great story to tell. That people really responded to that. So I think having a great story to go with a great image is the thing that helps Allied Arts the most, and what we've looked for when we've managed this program on our own.
That's so helpful. Thank you, Sunny. And we do have a scoring rubric on our website that kind of will show you how we're gonna, we expect there to be a lot of applications, and so we'll have that tough decision of selecting one. So between our organizations, we are going to use a scoring matrix to kind of help us decide who will be the artist in 2027. And you can view that, but there are really three main sections: the artistic quality and originality, again, that audience engagement of, if you're not comfortable speaking, that's okay, but helping Allied Arts team to tell that story, as well as Sunny mentioned. And again, just kind of that feasibility and experience that you have to have the capacity to do this really long, really, really big scale project. So I think at this point we're ready to do some Q&A. What do you think, Sunny?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Awesome. We had one question from Tiffany in the chat that asked, since the artists are responsible for producing all the works, are there recommendations or resources for a local printer or print on demand service that could possibly offer like a discounted or wholesale rate? Which is a really great question. I know we've worked at OVAC with Quick Print, which I think they're a local company, and I think their whole thing is that they're the printer for the Thunder, and they do, obviously, I'm sure, like a really large amount of printing. And I've known artists that have gotten prints done by them. So they might be someone to look into. But Sunny or Rebecca, do you guys have any
I
knowledge
think a lot
about?
of why we have moved to work with OVAC is because y'all do have those resources and do
Mhm.
this work every day for a lot of different mediums. Um, what I have observed in us managing it directly, that a lot of times the best deals that people have been able to get are through their own relationships. And if you have a vendor that you work with regularly on this scale, being able to go to that vendor and say, hey, I've got an opportunity to do something that's on this scale. Can you help me with a deal? Has worked out for several of our artists in the past.
I think that's great advice. Yeah. And again, we'll work with you. In that case, if someone's doing, a mass production of prints, that's very different than if it's, a sculptural piece. So we'll certainly work with you to identify if there's a way to get some support in that final kind of production of your work.
Yeah. We had another question from Rachel. Is the artist responsible for the printing and production costs? Which would be yes. The cost of production would come out of the total amount that the artist is contracted for in their compensation. Um,
Yes. One thing,
And for making the work display ready.
yeah.
So, back to working with vendors. The year that we had Benjamin Harjo Jr.'s print, Barbara Harjo worked with a vendor that they were Red River Printing had done a lot of work with Ben over the years. So Barbara went to Red River and said, I've got this massive scale of a thing. Can you help us with the deal? And so they had a local known relationship that helped them with the printing, but then we needed to find a way to frame it. So we helped them source, and in this case, OVAC would help source. We got really beautiful acrylic blocks that we ordered from Amazon. So it was this really high end local printing, but to make the money math work, we ordered these acrylic blocks from Amazon, and those two things together made a beautiful work that was financially feasible on the scale.
That's the one I have at home. Benjamin Harjo piece.
Yeah, and then Greg asked about the missions of OVAC and Allied Arts, and Karis dropped OVAC's website link in the chat where we have our mission up on our website, and I'm sure Allied Arts also has their mission statement
It
up.
does, though. It would. I probably should have said this in the introduction up front. Allied Arts' mission is to enrich lives through the advancement of the arts. And much as Rebecca said, OVAC was founded in the 80s. Allied Arts was founded by the business community in 1971 because the community leaders of that day knew that for our city to grow, we had to invest in arts and culture. So we were really founded as an economic development vehicle to invest in the arts. And today, Oklahoma City is the 20th largest city in America. Proof to me that investing in the arts is important.
Love that.
Yep.
And when you access the application through our website, you will also see kind of, about Allied Arts, about the Step Up program and all of the project scope there as well.
Yeah, some more information in the application, definitely. And then another question, can the artist still qualify for the opportunity if they've recently been selected for grant funding from OVAC? Which I think is, yeah, totally fine, because this isn't really, it's not funding coming from OVAC anyway, so you don't got to worry about
Yeah.
it. It's a separate program, so yeah, I think you'll be good to go.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? You can put them in the chat, or also I'll probably just be able to take yourself off mute and ask if there's any more questions.
I have to say, it's super excited to see so many artists on the call today. I think this new partnership with OVAC is going to take a really important, really established program to the next level. So thank you all for your interest.
Thank you, Sunny, so much. Thank you all for joining us. Again, this will be recorded and on our website. Reach out to Ariana if you have any questions. One little tidbit of information. We are on winter break beginning 5 o'clock on Friday for a couple weeks, but we'll be back on January 5th. So hopefully you've been equipped with enough information to at least get your application going, and we can get back with you beginning the 5th with any other questions you might have. So thank you again so much, Sunny. Thank you all for joining us. We're just so excited to take this program to a new level in 2027.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, OVAC.
Bye.